Well, Dominic, 'tis the season, my friend,
That's
as
right.
we are here for the very first episode in December of 2021. Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. We're here on a lovely Wednesday to give you guys another edition of the Reddit Roundtable.
Yes.
Dominic, it's been a while. We've had about a little over a week off, I guess, of doing episodes. So, how are you feeling? How are the holidays treating you and your family?
Oh, damn, no, it feels so good to be back in the studio with you today. I'm so excited to I guess we're not getting too much on a regular schedule, but anyways, it's the holiday season. It's going to be a lot of good episodes coming up this month before the new year. I had a great week off. Had some time to, rejuvenate. We were hitting it hard for 10 straight weeks worth of fights. So it was nice to just have some time, be with the family. Still had some things going on at work with school. Things are starting to dwindle down, man. It's crazy. We're already in the month of December. My co-host had a lovely 24th birthday on Thanksgiving as well, Noah. So how was your time home with the family? How was Thanksgiving, and how was the big 2-4 birthday?
It's always nice to be able to go home and see some family for a little bit. Had a good time. 24th birthday, let's be honest, people. Once you hit 21, there's not really much of there wasn't really any celebrating of the birthday. That's just the reality. Once you hit 21, you don't get too excited about those birthdays anymore. But, another year older, 24 years old.
Another year wiser.
Yeah, so they say. And, it feels good. I feel like 24 is going to be my year.
Okay.
I know Dominic was going to love hearing that. He loves that. Motivational crap.
Oh, yeah. I'm here for it.
But, no. A lot of exciting stuff going on. Wrapping up my time as an undergrad. So I'm about to graduate college at the young age of 24 years old. And I'm about to move over to a different state here soon. So a lot going on. Didn't really have time to focus on the birthday. But
that's right.
If anything, it was still just nice to be home. But it feels even nicer to be here with you today, Dominic.
I feel so warm and cozy today, Noah.
In order to kind of get people, I want people to kind of ease into this episode because we might have some people. We've had some new subscribers, a lot of new followers over the last few weeks. So for some people, this is going to be their first ever Reddit Roundtable.
It is.
So before, nice. So before we just jump right into it, I want to, ease the audience in. So I'm going to ask you a question right now that's not even included in today's Reddit Roundtable. That's just going to be about Christmas music.
Oh.
Now, since it is December, we have kind of we are past Thanksgiving, and I would say the majority of people socially accept the fact that once Thanksgiving's over, it is socially accepted among everybody that Christmas music, Christmas decorations, they can all start coming out. Christmas movies start playing. 25 Days of Christmas on Freeform.
The lights go up.
Yeah, all that. But, Dominic, how do you feel about Christmas music before Thanksgiving? There was some people that were starting to play the music, starting to put up the tree, the decorations right after Halloween.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
My golden rule, Noah, is that I cannot allow any Christmas music or lights in the household or on the radio until Black Friday, so the day after Thanksgiving. But believe it or not, no, I broke my own rule this year. I actually saw lights on Wednesday, so the day before Thanksgiving. I technically broke my rules, my traditions, but hey, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But but now is the season. Let's give me all the music, give me all the cookies, the lights, the snow. Well, not too much snow. I don't want a lot of snow, but just a little trinkle here and there. But yes, I agree that the day after Thanksgiving is when we just let loose with the festivities.
I'm curious what some of your, traditions are. I know you and your family are very big on kind of those yearly traditions. You guys tend to, during Halloween season, you guys are going to haunted houses and stuff like that. You go see lights as a family. not really something that my group does. So I'm curious, is those kind of the only traditions? Is there anything else? Is there any movies that have to be watched every year as a family for you guys?
Yeah, there's a couple traditions throughout the month of December. One being actually that every December 19th, or give or take a day or two, we always go as a family to see lights for my sister's diabetes anniversary when she
Yeah.
was diagnosed on that day. So we always take her to see lights there, do something together as a family. And in terms of a movie, I mean, this is probably a lot of households. I'll be curious to let us know in the comments, but on Christmas Day, we got 24 hours of the Christmas Story, and that's always on. That's on from sunrise to sunset in this household. So yeah, that's definitely the two biggest that I can think of in terms of the holiday season traditions. What about you?
Yeah, there's nothing really specifically that my family does. I will say my mom has always been big on putting up the Christmas tree as a family. That's
Mm,
her thing. She is obsessed with it, and she
yep.
actually she's always been someone that puts up the tree. Typically, she would do it around, I think, probably the night of Thanksgiving, like after all the families left, because my mom always hosts Thanksgiving with her side of the family. Once they've all left, then the tree comes out. I'm full of shit, and it's like, all right, time to hang up a tree, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But me and my sister grew up hating it. We hated it. My mom is quite how do I word this? She's quite specific in how she wants her tree to be put up. Ornaments need to be put in certain places. There needs to be a certain amount of space between each ornament. She is quite she's like you ever see the shows on HGTV? She could have a holiday season show about putting up Christmas trees. She is
I like that.
quite the expert in how to put up a tree. Me and my sister, we are not. So that was like the one tradition that we really had growing up. Actually, this year was the first year my mom hung up her tree before I came home. So
Oh,
she hung up two trees this year actually. So
we have two trees.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the first year for that. She did she has a really big one, like a 10-foot tall tree in the
Yeah.
living room. And that one, the theme of that is I think snowmen. So like all the snowmen ornaments are on that one. And then if you go towards the dining room, there's a smaller tree that's got a bunch of Santa Claus stuff on it. So she
Okay.
did like a theme thing this year, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that's always been kind of the one tradition. Now I have a lot of fond memories of going with my grandparents to see lights through. And if we didn't go to like you typically go to like a lights show or something, or whatever they
Or like a
call it.
drive-through kind
Yeah,
of.
that's what I mean. One of those. My grandparents, they would drive us like just through the neighborhoods, like the rich
Ah,
neighborhoods.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
would see the lights that way. I had a lot of memories of that.
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, that was always fun when I was a lot younger. I can't say I've seen like lights in that capacity now. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, come on, they're neat, you know.
Right.
But movie wise, I'm a big, obviously, I've talked about it a few times. What a big movie fan I am. A lot of movie watching. I love getting into the holiday spirit by watching those 25 Days of Christmas on
Yeah.
Freeform. Um, some of the classics, Christmas Story is a classic. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of funny how that's the movie that gets picked to be the 24-hour
Right.
movie, and like it's not close to my favorite Christmas movie. I'm Home Alone guy. I'm
Oh.
National Lampoon's Christmas
Yes,
Vacation.
love Christmas Vacation.
God, now I can't even think of all the Christmas movies. I mean, there's a lot of good ones. The Santa Claus is a fun one.
Yeah.
A Christmas Story is great.
The
I'm not.
Grinch.
Yeah, we grew up with Jim Carrey's The Grinch, and a lot of people don't like it
Oh, I freaking love it.
because it's kind of, compared to like the source material,
Yeah.
the original cartoon, maybe not the most I don't know what you would call it, the most accurate portrayal.
Yeah.
That original cartoon is 30 minutes, people. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So Jim Carrey's The Grinch is a fun one. I enjoy it. There's a lot of good Christmas movies, but I don't know. That was a nice little took
Oh,
up
yeah.
some time there. But that, for those of you that don't that right there is what the Reddit Roundtable is supposed to be.
Yes.
It's a chance for me and Dom. We scour the web looking on Reddit, hence the name, but also Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, comment section. We look for the community's questions. What are you, the MMA fans, wanting to know? And this is the source. This is where you go to get the answers to those questions.
That's right.
So
one of a kind.
We have a list of about 10 questions here. We do this on every episode, and most of these will be MMA related, but we have a couple curveballs in there just to spice things up a little bit. Typically, that's the case on most of these episodes, but we try to keep it MMA as much as we can. And with that being said, Dominic, do you have any words of wisdom before we get started?
No, you already know what I'm about to say. Let's get right into it.
Question number 1, Dominic. This question involves someone who your family hold near and dear to their heart.
Especially now.
Yeah, Kayla Harrison, who Dominic did not have a chance to meet, but
I don't want to talk about it.
His little sister and your mom got the chance to meet her, correct?
Yeah.
And she did get an autograph.
Yes.
So you got an autograph, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Dominic and Kayla Harrison are like best friends now. I mean, Kayla Harrison's about to replace me on this podcast, I think.
Yeah.
But we all know, we've talked about Kayla Harrison, basically a neighbor, grew up about 5 minutes from our hometown. And she's kind of on top of the world right now. She's got back-to-back PFL championships in her belt, a couple $1 million to the bank. And now she's looking for the next big thing.
Yep.
Is she going to remain in the PFL, and are they going to maybe even commit even more to kind of building something around her, whether it's a featherweight division or whatever? Or is she going to go to a promotion like Bellator or the UFC and get a fight with one of the top pound-for-pound women in the world, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, among others? So the question's kind of being brought up, Dominic. Based on what we've seen from Kayla Harrison thus far, should we believe that she is among the top 5 best female fighters in the world?
I think it's hard not to say yes. You know what I mean? I know that her level of competition in the PFL is nowhere near what we see in the UFC, what we see in Bellator. But at the end of the day, she's just saying yes to whoever gets put in front of her. She's winning these tournament formats. You know, she won 4 fights in a year. Not a lot of people fight that often, let alone win that often in 1 year. So she's definitely a top 5, you know, and it's pretty simple, right? You have Amanda Nunes. You've got Valentina Shevchenko. You've got Rose Namajunas. You've got Chris Cyborg. And you've got Kayla Harrison. I mean, that's the top 5 best female fighters in the world to me, in my opinion. And, of course, they're all the champions at their own respective divisions. But, yeah, you know, I am looking forward to seeing her get tested, Kayla, that is, if she leaves the PFL, goes to Bellator, goes to the UFC. But she has shown just improvements in her game. And I know that she always goes back to her bread and butter, her grappling, which why wouldn't you? She's a 2-time Olympic champion, judo practitioner. But, you know, when she is on the feet, she's at least not like she's causing issues to her opponents, but she looks comfortable, more comfortable as the fights go on and able to at least get her opponents to the ground, but she doesn't have to hurry and rush into it anymore. She can kind of take her time. So as we continue seeing this evolution of her skill set, along with racking up wins, it's hard not to say she's top 5 in the world. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that as well.
I think it's hard to say that she is top 5 in the world based on what we've seen. And here's why. I love Kayla Harrison. I no doubt am all on board with her getting one of those big fights, trying to prove that she is one of the best. But I've been also one of those people that said I am not opposed to seeing her fight someone who's not Chris Cyborg or Amanda Nunes as her debut.
Yeah.
Because the level of competition she's fought this far is so below that it's a lot to ask of someone to jump that high up. No matter how naturally talented she is, I'm sure in her training, she's training partners, or I guess she is teammates, I should say, with Amanda Nunes and people like that. And so she's getting good rounds with some of the best in the world. But
yeah,
the reason why I've been wanting her to maybe take a fight with, if she goes to Bellator, like a Kat Zingano, or in the UFC, she could fight like an Aspen Ladd or someone like that, is because I'm just not 100% sure that she should be thrown to the wolves like that immediately.
Yeah.
Is she a top 10 women's fighter in the world? I'll give you that one. But I mean, to put her in front of people like Holly Holm, Jermaine Durand to me, Jessica Andrade,
Mm-hmm.
Zhang Wei Li,
Yeah.
even Carla Esparza. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot to assume about someone right now. And while I no doubt think that she's probably in front of some of those, she just needs time to prove it. Like, it's all
Right.
about kind of what you've done. I can project. I can't. I'm not big on like. It's all about how you perceive this question, I guess. I mean, for me, I'm looking at it like if I was making a pound for pound women's MMA rankings, would I put her in front of some of those names? And I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
As great as she's been, it's no doubt that the women of the UFC are fighting at a higher caliber, higher competition than the women of the PFL. So, based on the resume, she's like borderline 10, 9, 8, somewhere in there,
Mm-hmm.
with no doubt the upside to be the best.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Number 2.
Ah.
So this is something I saw a little discussion on Twitter about, and this is on the topic of what I'm going to call nostalgic content. So what is nostalgic content? Well, it's, we've dabbled in it a little bit here ourselves. We did a couple classic pay-per-view reviews. Really just any content that focuses on the past. So the question here is essentially about nostalgic MMA content versus nostalgic WWE content.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why there's that distinction made is nostalgic WWE content is like a gold mine on YouTube. It's
Mm-hmm.
I watch a lot of it myself, even though I don't even watch wrestling anymore. I always love watching channels like Wrestling with Regret. There's some others before that, but that's really all I follow at this point. And they post a lot of like classic pay-per-view reviews basically for wrestling shows. And I love watching it because that's the era that I really consumed the product.
Yeah.
But nostalgic MMA content is very hard to come by on YouTube. And
It's true.
really, when you do see it, it doesn't tend to do that well. There's even one of the leading, I guess, voices in this discussion on Twitter was someone who has their own podcast. I believe it's called Behind the Hexagon or Inside the Hexagon. It's a podcast dedicated to Strikeforce. Going. So he does a lot of interviews with some of the bigger names of Strikeforce, going maybe through their resume, or he'll focus on a single card, for Strikeforce and break down the fights on there. A lot of really cool podcasts. I've listened to quite a bit of it. So the question, Dominic, nostalgic MMA content does not get near the kind of response that nostalgic WWE content does. But why is that?
To me, when I think about it, it's got to be that entertainment factor, right? It's that storyline factor. In the WWE, there were the characters essentially playing these roles, and then they would intertwine with other characters. It would build rivalries. It would build storylines that would go days, weeks, months, even a full year. It would take. You would build up, and then at WrestleMania, the match occurs, or at the Royal Rumble, the return happens of this fighter. So it's got to be that for me. Whereas MMA is just, it's the real life fight game, right? It's these guys that are going to fight 2, 3, 4 times a year, and they don't really. Yes, you get like your build-ups to pay-per-views with the countdowns and whatnot, but there's not that nostalgic piece, I guess, that really tugs at your heart and gets you like fully indulged. Obviously, we're indulged in all things MMA because we love it and we do a podcast and stuff, but we still don't feel the way we did about the old school WWE days. And I'm sure there's still kids that view the WWE as we did when we were young in today's generation. So it is that factor to me of that entertainment piece, the storylines, the characters, and you could just attach yourself to so many different things. And really, week in and week out, you could watch these stories take place. Whereas if you have like a fighter, they're only going to fight. If you have a favorite fighter, I should say, they're only going to be on the screen, 2-3 times a year. But if you're watching WWE and you love Jeff Hardy like me and Noah, or you love Triple H, The Rock, so on and so forth, you'd see him 2 times a week for 50 weeks out of the year. So I think that's where it comes down to why it just still is so prominent today. Before we started recording, I told Noah I was on Peacock last night because they have a huge WWE catalog now, and I was watching the best of The Rock, and it's showing some of his best moments, some of his best matches. So just little things like that, and remembering where I was at the time, what did I think then versus how I view it now as an adult. And that's why it kind of takes the cake for me over the MMA content from the past.
You know what? I think that's a good answer, and I think there's even more to it. It's a lot of this is, you're right. It's almost like the way you were kind of describing it. It's almost kind of inevitable because WWE, like, it's just so much different because you can you build up the people you want to build up, and it's easier to create stars in a promotion where it's scripted than when it's all reality, mano y mano, right?
Right.
So, you've seen these careers like The Undertaker just retired last year. The guy had been wrestling for 30 years.
Crazy.
And at the end, he didn't look like the big bad Undertaker anymore. He was a bit more older. He had more years on his belt. But when he would come back and he would wrestle a guy like AJ Styles or someone who's like very fit, very in shape, very built, and he would beat their ass because he's the Undertaker. That's what he does. It's that character aspect. But I actually think there's an aspect to this of let's compare to UFC versus WWE. Have you ever noticed that Dana White, and this is really his job as a fight promoter, he always focuses on the present. Kamaru Usman, after his win against Colby Covington last month, was being crowned by Dana as the best welterweight of all time.
Yeah.
But people got upset about that. But you have to understand, from Dana's perspective, there's no reason for him to say otherwise.
Right.
There is no value for him to say that George St. Pierre or Matt Hughes or whoever is the best welterweight of all time, because they aren't making the company money anymore.
Yep, that's true.
So you have these guys like Kamaru Usman who are on this great run, and of course he should back that champion. That's the guy that he's promoting, he's building up right now. In the WWE, what's always been interesting, if you go and watch, they do a great job with their nostalgic content. But if you ask someone who's really into wrestling, I bet they would tell you that like WWE specifically, they're almost too much into the nostalgic content to where they struggle to build up guys now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the reverse effect. It's like MMA struggles to really have any sort of remembrance of the past and that kind of nostalgic feeling. But WWE almost struggles to focus on the present. I because I have Peacock, I'll see ad placements for upcoming WWE cards, and they'll have a headlining spot for Goldberg. I'm like, why is Goldberg still wrestling? That guy's almost 60 years old.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar's still hanging around. You got these guys. The Undertaker will still come back for a one-off here and there. Like, it's just, but they're doing this, and they're having him beat these guys that are very old or older, I should say, beating, these young up-and-comers, if you want to call them that. In MMA, that doesn't happen.
Right.
Anderson Silva gets put up against Uriah Hall. If it was WWE, Anderson Silva probably wins.
Right.
But instead, real life, Uriah Hall wins because he's the younger,
better fighter.
At this point. So that's really the root of the issue, is that one gets to kind of pick and choose how they want people to be perceived. I mean, there is an aspect of like the fans have to get behind someone, but I'm just saying, your career, you could be the best wrestler in the world because someone decided you were.
Yeah.
MMA doesn't work that way.
It's true.
So it's I personally love nostalgic MMA content when I see it. I do really enjoy looking back on some of those old pay-per-views. I've really been digging into Pride recently. I plan on going over to Strikeforce after that, WEC. I'm a nostalgic person. That's just kind of how I roll. And a lot of that comes from when I grew up, WWE. If you watch WrestleManias, the beginning, the hype package at the beginning, it's always like Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3.
Mm,
Dominic, me and you never watched WrestleMania 3 because
nope.
that was 1987. But we remember that moment because you see it time and time again.
Yep.
Even some of our fondest wrestling memories, I can tell you probably we didn't even see live and we don't realize
That's true.
it. Like the Attitude Era, we were like 3 years old when
Yeah.
the Attitude Era was
Yeah.
going on. You know, that's what we remember fondly. We weren't even there.
Yeah, we were just running around in our diapers and it was on the TV, but we
Yeah.
weren't like present in the moment, you know?
So it was like later we kind of would go back and watch it, and then we almost like we became so invested in that time period.
Mhm.
We almost convinced ourselves that we were there.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's both sides are doing great things, but on the reverse, like they probably should focus a little more on the other side, especially like WWE should focus on its present day stars.
Yeah.
Like UFC probably should focus a little bit more on its nostalgic content. You know,
It's like
try
we're
to-
looking for the middle ground here.
Yeah, you know, I think there's some great. Fight Pass has that show I really like.
Fight lore.
Yes, Fight Lore I think is a great show that they kind of have just. I mean, it's still putting out good episodes, but like God, I love like the Joe Riggs and Nick Diaz hospital
Mhm.
fight. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just these weird stories. You know, the Bruce Buffer story where it's like him and Michael Buffer didn't know each other for basically 20 plus years, and then they find out they're brothers, and now they're
Yeah.
both two of the biggest. What would you call them?
Personalities in
Ring
combat
announcers.
sport. Yeah.
Ring announcers in the world. All these stories are great. I wish the UFC would do more stuff like that.
Yeah. I agree.
Number 3. So this question's a little bit relevant because we just came off of a weekend with no MMA. So Dominic, the question is, when there's no MMA, what are you spending your weekend doing?
Saturday
This-
nights.
this
Oh,
is
go
the
ahead.
thing.
Sorry.
I'm not trying to cut you off. It's just, you know, people only know us from this podcast. They see that we watch every Saturday. We're watching UFC. Sometimes we're watching Fridays, Bellator or
Mhm.
LFA or whatever. What are we doing when there's no MMA to watch?
Yeah, man. I mean, that is a good question because every Saturday night, essentially, or at least 40 out of 52 Saturdays of the year, I'm sitting in the basement for 6-7 hours straight, watching fights, taking notes, working on articles, working on stuff for the show. So when the weekends are off, it's just a little weird. It's odd. Sometimes I don't know what to do with myself, but I'm a gamer at heart, so sometimes I'll dabble in some video games. Funny enough, though, I don't know if I should say this on air, but I'm going to. The new Call of Duty's been out for almost a month now, Noah, and I've not touched it one time.
Wow.
So, but I would say, video games typically working on schoolwork right now is a big thing as I'm, edging the last 3 classes of my grad school program, spending time with friends and family. I mean, kind of the same things I would do in a normal weekend, except without fights. So I'm adding 6 more hours of the other things to it, but, it is nice after 10 straight weeks to have a small break. I mean, we want to see fights as much as possible. We've talked about it on a Reddit roundtable before, but I got to say it was nice, just especially being that it was on Thanksgiving week, just being with the family, spending time with them, being present in the moment. Now we're right back into it this week. But yeah, I mean, nothing too out of the ordinary, just hanging out. If something comes up, I'll dabble and do that, but nothing too crazy if I'm being honest.
Yeah, when I think of strictly like last weekend, I mean, obviously holidays kind of
Yeah.
straight that, but I mean, I'm not like what's so funny is I think people might get this idea that, because we have an MMA podcast, that's just the only sport, our only hobby, our only interest, and that's really not true. Weirdly, though, I didn't realize this until very recently. There's a large percentage of fans of MMA that don't watch other sports.
Yeah.
Like a very high percentage.
Yeah.
Me, I watch all
All of
sports.
Yeah.
I was watching college football all
Mhm.
Saturday, and I mean even Friday, NFL for Thanksgiving, and obviously on Sundays. Even when I'm watching the UFC fights, typically I have another TV or my laptop streaming college football.
Yeah.
And whenever football's not in session, I'm a basketball fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a baseball fan. It's harder to get into those as much because there's just so
Yeah,
many more
especially now.
games. But typically I will try to keep up with like the Cincinnati Reds in baseball, and in basketball I'll try to watch probably more college basketball. College sports are kind of more my jam. But yeah, I just watch a lot. I'm a big sports watcher, I mean, to be honest. And you know, I like to have a few beers while I do it too. So if I can have friends, or if I can be with friends, and I don't know if you want to call it a party, but you know, like we'll just be basically drinking a few beers, shooting the shit.
I get together,
be like, you know, and I'll be like, hey, can I put on the fights while we're doing this? You know? So that's kind of the way I've watched it a lot. I mean, maybe I don't know if I should say this, but the fun fact of last year, especially when me and Dominic were still doing our episodes in person and audio, most of the cards at that time I was watching after they had aired. I didn't have the time to watch them when they were on, so I'd watch them the morning before we recorded. It's just that's the way it goes sometimes. It's hard to be able to have every Saturday night open. It's just that's a hard thing to do when you're our age, and if you're like me, I'm still in my undergrad at college, but obviously that's changing here soon. So I mean, besides that though, like I don't have anything else that I really hobby wise, like I'm not like a big fisherman or hunter or anything like that. I just like watching sports, man.
Yeah, and I would say golf, but I usually do that during the week. So yeah, the weekends, I mean, it's nothing crazy, if I'm being honest.
Number 4. This is a fun one.
Yeah.
So Dominic, that's right, you, Dominic, have been chosen as one of the individuals to vote for the inaugural class of the newly established MMA Hall of Fame. Who are your 5 votes going towards? I put 5 just to cap it off. And now, Dominic, we can try to set some more parameters if you want, or I could just let you run with it. You know, I think in the Baseball Hall of Fame, I believe you have to be out of the league for 5 years to be eligible. Cool. So, like, you could try to throw that caveat on top, where, like, you kind of have to be out of the sport. You can't be competing professionally at the time when you get put in the Hall of Fame. I'll leave that up to you, though, as you make your 5 votes.
There's so many names rattling in my head right now.
Should we do this together? Should we work through this together? I mean, there's one obvious one, right?
Yeah.
Royce Gracie's an obvious vote,
of course.
Right?
Yeah. 1 for 1. Yeah.
So, do you go Ronda Rousey? Is my question.
You know, that was one I was thinking. I think you have to. I think you do.
Yeah.
I mean, the first just
MMA.
Yeah. Pioneer, man. Yeah. You know?
So we need to focus on here. This is an MMA Hall of Fame.
Right.
Not just UFC. So, like, does Fedor get a vote, or are we putting that caveat of, you know,
he's still active.
He's still active. If you go, people, excuse me as I burp into the microphone. So you do those 2. I mean, I think you could even maybe do Ken Shamrock. I mean, let's see, who else do we have in there?
When I first immediately read the question, 2 names came to my head.
Okay.
Chuck and Tito.
You went with UFC.
And well, yes. But like the dark days of, yes, the UFC, but essentially the dark days of MMA in general at that point in time still, you know, in a way.
I think Kazushi Sakuraba should be one. I know that I don't know how much you've watched of like old Pride, but he was like an absolute legend to Japanese MMA. And unfortunately, it was almost to the point where those promoters were basically setting this guy up to get fucking murdered. I mean, he was being put in these terrible mismatches. The refs were letting the fight go because it's like, oh, they want him to win so bad. But Kazushi Sakuraba has got to be one for me. I mean, I'm just talking. It doesn't have to be 5, but, you know, just some names. I mean, Chuck and Tito are great ones, I would say. Um, I mean, George St. Pierre at this point has probably been out
GSP.
of the sport long enough that.
What about
Boss
Mirko Krokop?
Crow Cop's a pretty good one. I was gonna say Boss Root.
Boss Rutan, yeah.
Kevin Randleman passed away. That could have a.
He just got inducted into the UFC one
Yeah.
this year. Mark Coleman.
Mark Coleman, the godfather of ground
Yeah.
and pound. So if I had to pick 5 names, and, obviously I could probably change if I thought about it longer. I'm going Royce Gracie, Ronda Rousey, Kazushi Sakuraba, George St. Pierre, and I'm going to go Boss Rutan as number 5.
All right. Yeah, I'll be slightly more on the casual side then, I guess, of this conversation, but I will go Royce Gracie, Ronda Rousey for sure. GSP was one I was going to do. And then, yeah, I think I will do Chuck and Tito, not only because of the special place they do hold in my heart, and that's what got me into MMA, but just how they essentially backpack the entire sport, and especially the UFC during those dark days. And I'd be curious to see, always wonder, like, where would the sport be now without those two guys in that rivalry? So
Yeah, it's hard to say because in America, for sure.
in America, for sure, yeah.
What's so funny is, like, while the UFC was in its dark days, Pride was like killing it over there in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, they still to this day, a Pride show has the highest attendance for an MMA event.
Yeah.
Like the UFC doesn't even hold that record. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
I mean, they were just doing stadium shows every week, basically, was what Pride was doing.
I mean, I think their record's like 90,000 or something, and UFC's hit 56 or 57.
Something like that.
I think that was Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
Just kind of wild when, obviously we're Americans, so like because of that, we kind of tend to focus more on that side of things because that's what would affect us more.
Yeah.
That's more. We were exposed to the UFC before anything else.
Yeah.
Especially you've watched UFC was really, you didn't even know there was really anything else for a long time.
No.
So it's so weird how that cultural limitations can kind of hold us back from seeing the full picture. Because Pride was like killing it in Japan, but you wouldn't have known it if you were a UFC fan in America in 2002.
Yeah, it's so true, man.
There's a lot of good names that could probably be thrown in there, and there's probably some that we're missing. I mean, Ken Shamrock could be a good one.
Yeah.
Frank Shamrock, if you're going full MMA, I mean, that's a guy who did a lot for the sport. I mean, hell, Nick Diaz could be up there. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly,
I mean, Vanderlei Silva ran through Pride.
Vanderlei Silva, Rampage Jackson should probably be up there. It's Shogun Hua
yeah,
for Pride and for the UFC. Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, Anderson Silva will be up there soon. I mean, he would be an obvious pick if he hadn't just fought. Yeah, I mean, you could really just throw out a million names, and I'd be interested to see how when you have like a first. Once that happens, because I'm assuming at some point in time there will be an MMA.
Well, yeah,
Hall of Fame.
We're starting it. Remember?
Yeah. Whenever that MMA Hall of Fame comes around, I'm curious how they will go about the inaugural class.
Yeah.
Is the majority of voters going to vote for, like, are they going to go more off of like the timeline, like who are the pioneers, like the earliest pioneers, or are they going to just go off of kind of who's right now 5 people that have made the biggest impact and have been out of the sport for
long enough,
a few years,
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see.
Give us your list in the comments.
Yeah, really. I don't envy that job. I don't, but I would also love to have a part in that. So
right.
But typically it's writers, so maybe you could get in there.
Yeah.
And maybe I could just like whisper my votes to you.
Yeah, I'll give my little tidbit at the bottom. Honorable mention from Noah Baker.
But moving on to number 5.
Oh.
Speaking of movies, there's been a lot of good ones. Not a lot of good MMA movies.
Yeah.
We have been limited to Here Comes the Boom with Kevin James, which decent movie, I would say.
Shout out to the Barely Critical Movie Review Podcast.
Of course. But besides that, we just had Halle Berry just had her movie come out on Netflix.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
Yeah, we probably should have watched that before this question. But you know what?
I've seen it's anyway. I'm gonna watch. I'll
episode
watch
for a different day.
Yeah.
But Never Back Down was one from a long time ago that a lot of people. It's kind of like a Karate Kid ripoff that got some buzz back then. So not a ton of MMA movies, but combat sports in general. If you open it up to boxing, you have a ton of boxing movies.
Yeah.
And then combat sports in general opens it up for karate, kickboxing's got some out there.
Yeah.
There are some really good ones if you open it up to all martial arts. So, Dominic, what is the best combat sports movie of all time?
No, I'm not even going to debate it. I'm not going to argue it. It's Rocky IV, and I'm not here for any other answers, baby. The greatest Rocky movie and the greatest combat sports movie that I've ever seen. Absolutely loved it. That whole storyline with, obviously Apollo Creed dies at the beginning due to the hands of Drago. Rocky's there in his corner. He dies in his arms. He looks up at Drago. Ooh, I get chills thinking about that eye contact. And then they go on to have their fight. It's in Russia. Rocky's training, running through the snow and the mountains. The soundtrack to that movie is the vibes, immaculate 80s vibes. I love everything about it. The America versus Russia, coming out of that Cold War era. It was such a cool movie, such a blockbuster hit. Sylvester Stallone, a legend. I forget who actually played Drago. Do you know that guy's actual name? Okay, so an amazing actor in his own right, and they just looked so good when they were doing the fighting sequences, and then Rocky wins and avenges Apollo Creed's death, and oh my gosh, I love that movie so much.
I love Dolph Lundgren, but you just called that man a great actor. Look, hey, Rocky IV is awesome.
If he dies, he dies.
You picked a great movie, but you picked probably the third best Rocky movie, so that's interesting. No, I'm just messing with you. Rocky III is my personal favorite of the Rocky movies. Mr. T, Clever Lang.
Yeah.
He actually is the reason that Mickey dies. So that adds to the added, the added motivation for one Rocky Balboa. What I love about Rocky III is that Rocky is like at this point, like this big superstar.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this world champion. He kind of gets a little bit into his own head. It's that quote. I forget which boxer said it, where it's like, it's hard to, God, now I can't remember the quote. Something basically about once you hit a certain point where you're like waking up in silk sheets, it's hard to have that same motivation that you did when you were like broke, up and comer, hungry. So Rocky has that kind of storyline in Rocky III where he's gotten a little bit, wussed. He's been wussed up a little bit because he's rich and, he's not the same guy, not the same motivation. Clubber Lang comes in there, played by Mr. T. He's like, I pity the fool. And
I was waiting on it.
Beats him for the title. And it's Rocky having to kind of dig deep into his roots. He's got to find himself. And there's a great scene in there with that's the movie where that's kind of when him and why am I forgetting his buddy's name who died in Rocky IV?
Oh, Apollo Creed.
Apollo Creed. Thank you. Don't know why I was blanking there. Him and Apollo Creed had the scene where they're running on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, great stuff. Great vibes all around.
Yeah.
But my favorite combat sports movie of all time. Oh my gosh. I put this question on here and I didn't. Boxing has a lot of good ones. I mean, Rocky movies. Cinderella Man's an underrated boxing movie.
Mm-hmm.
Creed. I mean,
Creed,
fantastic.
Southpaw. I love Southpaw.
Southpaw's pretty good. Yeah. Fun fact: that was originally supposed to be, instead of Jake Gyllenhaal, it was supposed to be Eminem. That was the star of that movie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I followed that movie's production for a long time because I was a big Eminem fan at the time.
And I love Jake Gyllenhaal, man.
Yeah, no, hey, Eminem, you're cool, but don't think you could have done what Jake Gyllenhaal did there.
Right.
Um, I would say my favorite is. Have you ever heard of Bloodsport?
Yes.
Yeah. So, fun fact about me, probably one of my favorite actors. I love like the '90s like action movies, kind of popcorn, just turn your brain off.
Yeah.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger era,
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone era of action movies, just big beefy dudes with big beefy guns
Yeah.
shooting bad guys. Like you don't even have to really think about it. You just
Yeah.
watch it. So I grew up watching a lot of these movies. Yes, that's right. As a child, I was watching a lot of these movies. My parents are awesome. But my favorite actor, because my mom was like in love with him, so she always had his movies on. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yep. Yep.
Who, funny enough, my mom always told me was the brother of Rob Van Dam, which it took me a long time to figure out that wasn't even true because they look alike.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You were all about it when you heard that.
My
I'm
mom
sure.
legitimately thought that was true.
Oh, she did. I thought she
Yeah.
was just telling you that so you
No,
would
she
like
thought
it.
it was true.
Okay.
But anyways, Jean-Claude Van Damme's like my favorite of that kind of 90s action
Yeah.
guy. So even though he's, for most people, they would put him below Stallone and Schwarzenegger. That's my dude.
Yeah.
And when I saw Bloodsport for the first time, I fell in love with it. It tells the true story of Frank Dux, who was this guy that supposedly went, I forget what country it is. I don't know if it's Taiwan or something like that, and fought in this secret underground kumite, where it was all these styles and, basically one night tournament.
Yeah.
And he wins. Funny enough, though, the real story of Frank Dux is kind of bullshit. He could get away with telling that story in the 80s, but the more that's come out about it, it turns out the guy is kind of a liar. So
Yeah.
the story is kind of all fabricated, but it's a great movie. It's a hell of a movie. But
I love when you take me on your little like history lessons because you teach me so many things.
My favorite tidbit about Frank Dux is that he said how, I forget, he told people how many, because it was a tournament.
Yeah.
So he said how many rounds he had to win in order to get to the final.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of rounds it would have, like, if you did it as a bracket and it took that many rounds to get to the final, it would have required more participants in this tournament than there were citizens in the entire United States.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay. We see what's going on here.
is he misunderstood? I don't know. You decide. But Jean-Claude Van Damme kills it. Movie's awesome. I love
My
it.
dad loves him,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
That's who showed me Bloodsport for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He also has a movie Kickboxer that's really good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jean-Claude Van Damme's the fucking goat.
Honorable mention to the original Karate Kid, by the way.
You know what's so I have a hot take about Karate Kid. Because I saw the new Karate Kid with Jaden Smith first.
Yeah.
And I know Jaden Smith, people are like, oh God. That movie is great.
It is
I
good.
actually
I
would
do
go
like
as
it.
far to say I like it more than the original. And I'm not saying, I'm sure the original's probably a better movie, but part of it's because I watched it first. I saw it in theaters when I was like 11 or something. But I love Jackie Chan playing the Miyagi role, and I love that it takes place in, I can't remember if it's Japan or China, whatever.
Yeah, they moved there, I think.
Yeah, I love that's like the setting.
Yeah, he's trying to fit in.
It feels like you become, even though technically the martial art's not karate in the new one, it's kung fu, which is kind of a dumb thing that they still call it the Karate Kid. It's the Kung Fu Kid, whatever. But
Kung Fu Panda, does that count in this category?
It does. I would, but I still love the movie.
Yeah,
the original's great, but the Karate Kid, the remake, is actually probably high up there for me. I love that movie.
I do like that movie. That's a good movie.
Yeah. So number 6, Dominic,
Mm-hmm.
Conor McGregor.
Ah, there he is.
A name that we don't talk about enough, right?
You're right.
I'm sure our audience is just loving that we talk about Conor McGregor. They're like, man, there's one thing we haven't heard enough of. It's that damn Irishman.
He finds ways to stay relevant.
And much of this question is because we've discussed pretty much every option for Conor McGregor as they've presented themselves. You know, it seems like every week, you know, Max Holloway or Michael Chandler, you know, Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, someone is saying that they should be the next fight for Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
So after weighing all these options and discussing them on this podcast, right here, right now, you are put, Dominic, into the shoes of one Dana White and Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby. You are the whole show that matchmaking meeting. You get to decide who you, as the UFC, put Conor McGregor up against in his return bout. Let's say July timeframe. Who do you put him up against and why?
No, we have to do the trilogy with Nate Diaz, man. We still have to capitalize on this while it's still relevant, because eventually it's going to become irrelevant. As much as it's crazy to say that because it's Nate Diaz, it's Conor McGregor. But that's just the fact of the matter, because the sport in the UFC is going to continue moving and chugging along like the train that it is. So let's get Conor McGregor. He's coming off of a skid. He's coming off of an injury. Nate Diaz, still a huge star, but on a skid, right? He's lost a few in a row now. They're one apiece. We need the trilogy to be settled. There's still beef there. They talk about on Twitter at least once a week. It's basically a date at this point that we see. So yeah, that's the fight that has to happen. I still think that at both points of their careers, I think it's a competitive bout, regardless of like the age difference. And even Conor coming off the injury, I still believe he can win that fight. And I do believe Nate Diaz can beat Conor, especially the Conor we've seen of late. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm not one to just catapult Conor back in with title contenders, even guys like Michael Chandler. While I love that fight, I think I even said it during the voice message we got from Tyler. I would love to see it, but not first for Conor. And I said this after Conor lost to Dustin in January. I think I said it when he broke his leg and lost in July. And here I am on December 1st saying it as well. We got to get the trilogy with Nate Diaz, man. Let's settle the score. They'll both get a huge pay-per-view to put under their belt, to add on to their records. That's the fight to make for me, man.
Yeah, no doubt that would be the biggest fight you could probably put for him at this point. I mean, that fight's still huge. It's still shocking that they've never put it together.
I know.
I mean, it's just
crazy.
But if I'm being honest, I'm actually going to go with a different option, and mostly because I want to give two different answers.
Yeah.
But if I'm really thinking about it, even though I would probably be the most excited about him versus Nate, in all honesty, I think people, just because Conor, I know he lost cleanly to Dustin, the first of these two bouts they had in 2021, he lost very clearly, got finished. Second fight, I know he broke his leg, but I mean, he was losing the fight up to that point, whatever. I think he's being a bit overlooked or counted out as like as a threat. And I don't think that's really fair. I mean, I do think that Conor McGregor is still a contender in the lightweight division. So while I agree with you, I'm not going to put him against Michael Chandler, even though I just said Conor McGregor is still, in my eyes, probably a contender. But coming off a terrible injury like that, and back-to-back losses, you got to work your way back up. You know? And I would rather, I guess, long-term, if I'm in the UFC shoes, I want to put him in a lightweight fight, because ultimately, if he wins one or two bouts, he's probably right back in title contention again. So I'm going to put him against a fight that should have happened, or a fight that was booked to happen a long time ago. Him versus Rafael dos Anjos.
I love that fight.
You know, Dos Anjos is a great fighter still. You know, he's one of Dana White's probably favorite guys, in the sense of a guy that really, he's a good test for anybody. He really shows you what you have in that moment. If you can beat RDA, you can probably compete for a title. If you can't, you probably can't. That's just the reality of the situation. And I think a fight with him and RDA, Conor, that is, and RDA, is a great fight. There's a built-in story that they were supposed to fight at UFC 196. That is where RDA had to pull out like 2 weeks before. Nate Diaz gets the call, and that's why him and Nate Diaz had those 2 bouts. So I think that's like a great fight for him to come back to, because RDA is like not quite a contender, but he's like kind of right there.
Yeah.
And he's also not the finisher of like a Michael Chandler. This is what I kind of worry about. Conor is there's going to be some ring rust or some because I'm a believer in ring rust. I mean,
yeah.
But when he first steps back in there, he's coming off a terrible injury, back-to-back losses. He wants some time to kind of, get the feeling back in of being in the octagon. So you go up against Michael Chandler, that dude's going to come out like a man on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And try to take your head off right away.
Oh, yeah.
While RDA, you get more of that. RDA, I'm sure, will bring the fight. And I'm not saying that Conor's going to win that fight. But RDA will at least he's not quite the finisher or the explosiveness as a fighter I don't think, get Conor out of there in round 1.
Yeah.
You'll probably have a bit of a slower fight to start. Conor will probably be more to one, judging kind of the pace, and then it'll pick up as it goes.
Yeah.
I think it's a great fight, does good business for the UFC. If Conor loses, though, I mean, what else is there for him?
Can I pose a question based upon that matchmaking? Because this thought just rolled through my head as I'm sitting there.
Yep.
Because Conor McGregor is a main eventer, right? I mean, that's what he is ever since. I don't even remember how many it's been in a row now. But it's like, is he ever going to get to the point again where you can't justify him as like a main? Like, if he came back and were to fight RDA, is that a pay-per-view main event? Like, realistically, do you think they would do that because it's still Conor? And like, if so, if it is, do you think we ever see the point where Conor's still in the UFC, but not a 5-round main eventer? Like we see Conor in a 3-round fight. I just want to get your thoughts.
So I do think him and RDA is enough to be a main event. If they did it with him and Cowboy Cerrone, you can probably do it with him and RDA. But excuse me. That's an interesting. That is an interesting question. I think if he were to lose to like an RDA, I mean,
you still have the Nate one, which they would do a main event, obviously. But like,
truthfully, I think Conor will no longer fight in the UFC
if it gets to that point.
If it gets to that point,
that's probably
if the UFC ask him to be. That guy's ego is not going to let him. It wouldn't even allow him to take a replacement fighting spot.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be a replacement fighter. He said, "I'm not a replacement fighter."
Yeah,
like okay, I mean, so obviously the guy's ego is going to kind of prevent him from doing anything like that. I would say. I mean, as much as I know he's passionate and loves the sport, but I would honestly, if it got to that point, I think he probably maybe tries to pivot into like some sort of boxing career. Like, there was an interesting theory that maybe him versus Nate 3 doesn't end up happening in MMA, but it ends up happening in boxing. Because I don't know how many fights Conor has on his contract, but Nate has 1.
Yeah.
And it would be kind of interesting if those two had a boxing match as their third fight. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that is him and RDA a main event?
Part of me is like, no, but at the same time, like you do have the built-in story. It's still Conor at the end of the day. RDA is not like a star, obviously, but he is a former champion. He's been there and done that with a lot of great guys. Yeah, it would probably turn into a main event.
You have to think of the storyline of Conor's comeback fight.
Yes, of course.
Right now, we look at it and we're like, but you got to think of how much the promotion's going to ramp up by then.
They would tie in some of the old stuff.
Remember how we weren't all that hot on him versus Dustin 3.
Yeah.
And then once they started building it, it's like
they were like, fuck it.
Here, take my money.
Right. So but I do agree, like if he were to lose that, then he fights Nate. And if he were to lose that, it's like, okay. We can't keep putting him in main events because people are just gonna not really justify him being an elite guy no more. And he probably just doesn't fight at that point because he ain't gonna be on a fight night, I'll tell you that much. And I doubt he's gonna do a 5-round featured bout like Leon and Nate did. So he's got to be on the marquee. And I just think that, and it's not like to his detriment. It is to his detriment, and it's not, because he's made the bag. He's the biggest star that MMA's ever seen. But it is weird if you start losing, it's like, oh, what do I do? Do I keep fighting and not be a main eventer, or But yeah, I agree with you there for the most part.
Number 7. So this is following up on a discussion we had about Justin Gaethje and Islam Makhachev. Yeah, that's right. I went back to saying Makhachev. I don't know which way is the right way. Is it Islam Makhachev? Is it Islam Makhachev? I don't know.
Or some middle ground.
Yeah, I might say are both wrong.
Yeah.
That's great. But we were talking about who of the two was more, deserving of a title shot. And I thought this was a interesting way to kind of delve more into this without it being directly about Gaethje and Islam. It's just in general, Dominic, how much does the method of victory matter when evaluating a resume for a title shot? And I think Leon Edwards is a great person that we can talk about here too, because he's a guy that's been basically, we've had a lot of these talks about guys right on the cusp of title shots and are they deserving of it? And a lot of times the win streak is what's used to back that up. But Dominic, you're the guy, you're one of those guys, you get real excited when we're breaking down a fight and one of the guys has 100% finishing rate. So is there is the win really all that matters, or is the method of victory hold a big percentage of the evaluation for a title fight?
Well, I like that you bring up the method of victory, because at first the debate was like win streak versus strength of schedule, but now you're bringing in another piece, so it's like 3 pieces. How are you winning? Who are you beating? And are you on a win streak, right? And you can have this perfect mix of all 3 would be ideal, obviously. I mean, Gaethje kind of did that during his run to the interim title, because he won 4 in a row against ranked people, and he finished all 4 of them. So Gaethje did at one time check all those boxes.
I would say Francis Ngannou did that.
Francis Ngannou has done the same thing. And then you look at Islam Makhachev, who he has finished a few, but he doesn't have the greatest strength of schedule, but he's got 9 wins in a row. So it's like, everyone has been there. Carla Esparza, she's won 5 in a row. Most of them were, now she has a good strength of schedule, but most of them were like decisions, couple split decisions. But then you see what she does to Yan Xiaonan, who was looked at as a future champion or at least title contender, and she absolutely smashed her and destroyed her. So, it's interesting how we kind of break down these. And specifically to your question, the method of victory, I think it does hold some weight for sure. I mean, let's look at Leon Edwards, right? He's on this 10-fight unbeaten streak.
Sorry, not to cut you off. I'm sorry. But I thought it was interesting what you were doing right there. You were kind of you were almost treating it like a third of the puzzle piece here, or a third of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You have strength of schedule, win streak, method of victory. So are you saying that you think it holds equal weight to those other 2?
I wouldn't say equal, but I think it's something that can really push you in front of others. So let's tie it into, you spoke about Leon Edwards. A lot of decision wins, right? He's on the 10-fight unbeaten. I won't say it. I'll just say 9-fight win streak, right? We'll just remove the Muhammad fight. Yeah. But a lot of those are by decision. I'd say 7 or 8 of them out of the 9, probably off the top of my head, if I had to guess. But then you look at a guy like Vicente Luque. He's on a win streak, and he can finish people, and he has a strength of schedule too to back it up. So again, he kind of has all 3 of the puzzle pieces, as Noah said. Leon's got the win streak. He doesn't really have like the greatest strength of schedule. We kind of have discussed it before. He doesn't have the finishes. So, it's just interesting. At the end of the day, it doesn't outweigh a win streak. Like if Islam Makhachev won 9 in a row, but they're all via decision, I mean, to a certain extent, you're showing me that you can go the distance a lot. I mean, that's kind of a good thing. There's a certain aspect. So it doesn't outweigh or have an equal weight as a win streak or the strength of schedule. But I think having a couple KOs, having some submissions, I think goes a long way, man. I mean, look at Charles Oliveira is on this crazy win streak, and he's finished 8 out of 10 or something crazy like that. And he didn't have like the craziest strength of schedule, but he had the win streak and the impressiveness in which he did it, man. So
That's true.
it just kind of depends on the fighter, who it is, what weight class it is, who are they fighting. But yeah, I like that you brought that into play on top of the discussion we've already had.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up some receipts here so we can
Yeah.
compare. Leon Edwards, coming off that loss to Usman, he had a unanimous decision win over Dominic Waters.
Hey, nice
had
name.
a submission win over Albert Tumanov, who actually just had a great performance at the Triad Combat fight.
Yeah, he
this
was
weekend.
there.
He looked fantastic, by the way. So submission win there. Decision win over Vicente Luque. Decision win over Brian Barberena, who's going to be fighting, looks like this Saturday, even though Matt Brown pulled out. But TKO'd Peter Sabota. That was the one that there was like 1 second left in the fight, too.
Yeah.
Decision win over Donald Cerrone. Decision win over Gunnar Nelson. Decision win over RDA. You had the no contest with Bilal, but then the decision win over Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
So look, there's some good names on there. I'm not going to act like it's like a terrible resume. But, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to start criticizing Leon. That's not really the point of this question.
Right.
It's just, he has looked very impressive. But no doubt, if like one or two of those, Dominic, was a TKO, no question, Leon Edwards gets the title shot. Probably gets it before Colby Covington.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine if he finishes RDA,
If he finished RDA, or if he finished Gunnar Nelson or Donald Cerrone, no doubt. And then especially like if he did knock out Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
Come on. Which I'm not, again, those are tough guys to put out.
Yes.
The Donald Cerrone one, I was kind of before Cerrone kind of has now been on this streak of, finished losses. But those aren't easy guys to put away by any means. And that's a factor as well. You have to look at who you're fighting.
Yep.
If you're going up against Nate Diaz, you probably aren't going to finish him. If you're going up against Jorge Masvidal, unless you're Usman, you're probably not going to finish him. But now I'm going to go to Vicente Luque because you mentioned that. So he had that loss to Stephen Thompson at UFC 244 back in 2019. Coming off of that, he TKO'd Dr. Stoppage Nico Price, got the knockout of Randy Brown, submitted Tyron Woodley, and submitted Michael Chiesa.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Michael.
The Michael Chiesa win for Luque.
That was
about
big.
That's about on par with an RDA win for for
Leon
Edwards. It's just, I don't know. I will say that even when I put this on here, I was kind of like, I want to be able to give like a clear yes or no. I don't want to be wishy-washy. I don't want to go, well, it depends on who you're fighting. I mean, it does, but ultimately, how much does it matter? I think it matters quite a bit. Because ultimately, if you keep winning, you'll get a title shot eventually.
Yeah.
Leon Edwards will eventually, if he keeps winning, get a title shot. If he hasn't gotten it, if he is not next, he will win another fight. Or if he does win another fight, he'll probably get it after that or something.
Yeah.
But just look at, Justin Gaethje it's not just the strength of schedule, but I mean, he's putting these guys away. The Michael Chandler fight went to a decision, but I mean, that's an all-time fight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess in a way that one, you do have to kind of look more into it, but it's, man, I feel like I'm kind of going kind of scatterbrained here. It's just, I think it does matter because look at some of these guys who haven't gotten title shots, but we thought were next. Carlos Esparza compared to Zhang Weili.
Yeah.
Askar Askarov compared to Davison Figueiredo.
Yeah.
It's the UFC is always going to be reluctant or hesitant to give decision-heavy fighters the bill because they don't want boring fights.
Right.
And typically, not always the case, decisions can sometimes be the more boring fights on a card. Not always the case. Not even close to always being the case. I mean, our fight of the year category at the Joey's is going to be all decisions.
Yeah.
At least probably. So it's not foolproof, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
If Leon Edwards had finished every one of those guys along the way, he would have already fought for a belt. So you can't say it doesn't matter if you can do that. But like if Vicente Luque had won every fight by decision, I don't think he would even be in the discussion with Leon Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leon would have the more wins. We would just go, well, Leon does have a win over Vicente. It's because Vicente's going in there and finishing his opponents.
Right.
Leaving no doubt, that kind of thing.
So, man, it's interesting.
It was very interesting, though. Like, right away, you kind of started looking at it like a third of the pie.
Yeah. It's like you have a pie chart. What are the percentages, you know?
So once you started doing it, I was like, is it? I'm like, maybe it is that. Maybe it should be on the same level of a strength of schedule and I guess a streak.
Yeah.
It's close to being right there with those two.
And like you said, it can almost be looked at as like, okay, well, if this guy's on a 5-fight win streak, this guy's on a 5-fight win streak, they both have pretty good opponents. Which one are we going to take? Let's see which one has more finishes. It could maybe be like the deciding factor sometimes, but not it's not the number one off the bat, but it can end up being kind of a key factor at the same time.
I mean, I think I can say this. I don't know if I can say it for certain, but I don't think there's ever been a fighter who's gotten a title shot without having at least one of those three things.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly, for sure.
Which maybe that is an obvious thing, but it's just...
Except for people that get like an immediate rematch, but that doesn't count because
the strength of schedule would usually be
true.
On their side.
That's true.
So like Justin,
you got to check one of the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, like if Justin Gaethje was a decision-heavy fighter, he still has the strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Leon Edwards has the win streak, and I think there's a debate. I personally don't think the strength of schedule. I wouldn't necessarily check that off.
Yeah.
And then he's not finishing fighters, so he has one. One is all it takes, really. But
right.
Some of those guys, Vicente Luque finishes guys and he's on a win streak, even if it's less than Leon's. Like, I don't know. There's so many intervals. There's so many rabbit holes you could go down with this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I almost wonder if there's like maybe we're close to cracking some sort of
code
formula, like just a formula for like if you put this in and it comes out like a certain percentage.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that guy doesn't earn a title shot yet,
right,
based off of the math. When you look into it,
Oh, yeah.
Number 8. Hopefully that answer wasn't too scattered. I feel like it was.
I think it was a very good discussion.
So, Dominic, I'm going to give you the keys to the DeLorean. And you're going to go back. And when I give you the keys to that DeLorean, you're going to drive it. Okay? Yep. But there's a purpose for this. You are going to go back in time.
Yes.
And if you could do so, what is one combat sports card or fight you would want to experience live? I did combat sports because MMA has only been around since 93. Boxing, you go back much further.
Well, I'm going to stick with MMA. I have a feeling you might dabble into boxing, which is fine. You're the more of the boxing connoisseur. I'm gonna let you steal the show. But I might shock you with what I am going to pick. Maybe not, though. No, I'm going back to the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 finale. Because when I look back on that event and the fight between Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar, that's why we're here today, Noah. That's why we're sitting in front of the cameras. People are looking at our handsome faces, listening to our voices. Because of that fight right there. That fight put the UFC on the map to not only the casual audience, but just the United States domestically in general, caused a boom for the UFC and mixed martial arts to explode and become to where now it's nearly almost, maybe even depending on how you look at it, a mainstream sport, depending on who you're going to ask. So that fight, I would love to be there in person to witness that, man. I have it on a DVD set. It's on obviously all the fight passes. It's one of the greatest fights in the history of MMA and obviously of the UFC. And looking back, knowing how important it was, I would love to be sitting there like we were at UFC. Damn it, I always turn the wrong way. At UFC 203, would love to be there. I think it was at the MGM Grand. So it was at the smaller venue too. Not a lot of people. I would feel so selective, so exclusive. Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 finale. No, I'd have to be there.
Are you sure it was at the MGM Grand?
It was at one of those little ones. Maybe it was at the Palms. It was at one of the small.
I'm going to look it up
casinos.
just because there's a reason why I'm looking this up. So when I saw this,
your madness.
Well, I saw this discussion being had, and that's where I got the question from. But let's see, it was in the Cox Pavilion.
Oh, so even smaller.
Oh yeah, because I remember watching it because I watched it over the summer, and I was like, man, this is tiny.
Yeah.
So what was interesting is a lot of the discussion I saw about this question on Reddit, the majority of people were citing on, like, a lot of people would have not went with what your choice was because of how small the venue was, how small of a card it was in general.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously it's a huge day in the history of MMA, but like if you're going back in history, I guess a lot of these people, they were like, I want to go back to this card that was in a massive crowd.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that is a factor. You know, you want to go back and watch a fantastic fight. You don't just want to go and see some, you know, BS.
Yeah.
Quick knockout or something. At least probably not. Oh man. I mean,
are you going boxing, Noah?
I don't know. I wanted to have the option to because again, there's more history there. I think going Muhammad Ali, one of his fights back in the day, would have been something special because you do get that. Like, I guess his fight with Sonny Liston, maybe like you get the crowd, the audience, and you get a good fight. I mean, UFC 1 is an interesting one too.
Yeah.
Just to be a fly on the wall or to be
man.
Just to be in the crowd to see how people were reacting.
100%.
Oh God.
For what it's worth, my notable mention or number 2 was UFC 217 in Madison Square Garden. So 3 new champions, incredible fights, finishes.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I guess that would be a fantastic one. I guess for me, I'm looking at one. I wanted to go to something where I wasn't either alive for or I wasn't like present or like I wasn't really into the sport at the time. But 217, I mean, talk about getting fantastic fights. I mean,
yeah, that one checks all the boxes.
I mean, shit, if we're doing that, I might want to go to UFC 268.
Right? I mean, you obviously got UFC 100, a massive card, big things. I wouldn't pick UFC 200.
No, UFC 189. That's Conor Mendez and Lawler McDonald too.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic card. I wish I could think of more boxing cards off the top of my head because I do love the idea of just sitting front row like a '90s boxing fight.
Yeah,
you know. I want to say, you know what, the first Evander Holyfield Mike Tyson fight, that one probably would be it. It's a great fight. Evander Holyfield gets the win. Obviously, the rematch, Mike Tyson bites the ear.
Okay, I was about to ask when that happened. So that was the rematch. The
second one, yeah. So their first fight, that would probably be it.
There's so many just great things to think about. I mean, we got to see a pretty cool card in Cleveland, but I'm trying to think of we were somewhat kind of close to going to the one that was in Detroit when Max Holloway defended his belt and Francis Ngannou knocked out Overeem. That was in Detroit.
Oh yeah, we did talk about that. I forgot about that. We should have went to that in hindsight.
I think the only reason we didn't was because it happened when Christmas break started. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would make sense.
So there's a regret that me and Noah have. There you go, guys.
Because we might never get to go to an event again.
Right?
No, it's there's a lot of good ones. And you know what's weird is there's not like a ton of like in the course of MMA history. There's not like a ton that I go to. Is that weird? Like, there's been a lot of huge cards, but there's a lot of them that I've seen. I feel just like I don't feel like I would have gotten anything more out of being there in person.
Yeah.
But out of the cards I haven't seen, I mean, maybe Weidman knocking out Anderson Silva.
Hey, now.
I knew you weren't gonna like that one, but UFC 100.
Yeah. What about like watching Silva Son in the first fight? That would be sick.
Yeah,
I don't remember the rest of that card.
Well, that card I remember was really good. I just don't remember
I
what's
think we've
on it.
talked about the card itself before too.
Lesnar Carwin.
Yeah.
That card was really good. There's a good one. There's some good ones.
And we're not even like, I mean, there's fight nights too. That would be cool. It's just harder to remember those, you know. But
I'm not in this question. I would not answer with the fight night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Dominic, you make me laugh.
Number
9.
I like this question though.
We're looking ahead to 2022. This might even
right.
be something that we'll talk about again in the future. Who knows? But Dominic, right here, right now, most of 2021's wrapped up. We got a few weeks. Obviously, we got like 3 cards left. But as far as the fights that we know we're gonna get by the end of the year are done.
Yeah.
No more fights are probably gonna be added to this year.
And we know a few of the new year, a couple.
Yeah. So right now, as you look in 2022, I want you to give me 3 fights that you have to see in 2022.
Can we go one by one, back and forth?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to start with one that's likely going to happen, but hasn't been confirmed. But I think it's just too obvious at this point. Covington Masvidal. I think we see them do the new season of The Ultimate Fighter, which has been confirmed to happen. I forget what the weight classes are though, but they are doing it. I think they're going to
heavyweight and then women's strawweight or women's flyweight.
Yeah, whatever it is. They are doing another season though. And I know a lot of people weren't big on it, but whatever. I think they're going to be the coaches, and I think we're going to get a big card surrounded by those two as well. So I got to go first and foremost, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, the rivalry of all rivalries. I love that.
Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane as the champion versus champion. Whatever. It's Francis Ngannou is the champion, but that fight is going to tell me so much about how I evaluate heavyweight fights moving forward. Yeah. You have the most technically advanced heavyweight maybe we have ever seen in Ciryl Gane.
Mm-hmm.
But it may not fucking matter.
Be enough.
Because he's going up against the wrecking ball that is Francis Ngannou. So that fight's just going to – I'm so excited for it because I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Do we get somewhat similar to Gane versus Lewis? I don't know. Francis Ngannou is just going to, if he starts throwing haymakers, if one of them lands, Gane might be done.
Yeah, it's true.
And to me, all the signs, like if you go off of really all the variables, Gane should be the favorite, but at heavyweight, you don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm so excited for that fight. I have no idea what to expect.
I know, man.
I'm going to have such a hard time picking a winner of that fight. That fight is the most excited I've been for a heavyweight fight since Stipe DC3, and probably the most excited before that I've ever been.
Yeah, that's a big fight, man. I'm gonna dabble outside of the UFC for a second. One that we've already discussed, and I'm not saying it's going to be the next fight for each individual, but no, in 2022, I want to see Miss Kayla Harrison take on Chris Cyborg. I do. I want to see it next year, but it can be later because I'm with you. You know how I am about this. I do want to see Kayla be tested, fight 1 or 2 times against some ranked fighters in Bellator, prove she can not only beat them, but make featherweight comfortably because we know she's a lightweight. So that's a whole other factor that I think a lot of people are forgetting. I know she's fought at featherweight one other time in Invicta, but it's not easy, people. So she's going to have to make some adjustments with her life. So, but 2022, maybe the end of the year, Chris Cyborg, Kayla Harrison in Bellator. I want to see that fight for the title, preferably. obviously.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if it'll be for the title or not for
Yeah.
some of these. Like this one I'm about to do, Peter Yan versus TJ Dillashaw.
I was going to say that my number 3, but okay. Yeah,
So
I
that's
love
like
that.
the past or whatever of the bantamweight division against the present and future. Two of the most well-rounded bantamweights of all time.
Yeah.
That's the fight at that division for next year for me.
Let me look.
You want me to go ahead and give my third one?
Go ahead and give your third. I'm still looking.
So this one might come back to bite me in the ass, Dominic. But I'm going to go ahead and say it. I want to see Kamaru Usman defend his welterweight title against Khamzat Chimaev next year.
Oh shit!
Now, obviously, that should not be the next fight for either guy, but I'm hoping that both stay active enough next year to where that becomes a realistic possibility. And obviously, if Khamzat gets booked with like a Gilbert Burns or someone, Vicente Luque, whoever, not an easy fight. He might get smashed, and maybe he's going to turn into a Johnny Walker, but I really don't think so, guys. I really think he's the real deal, and I think him versus Usman's going to be a huge fight.
That's a big fight, man. I just had it. Wait, why did I forget? Hold on.
Because I caught you off guard with that Khamzat Chimaev, didn't I?
Wait, what the hell? I literally just had it in my head. Hold on. Keep talking about Khamzat. Oh my gosh, it was literally just there.
Yeah,
and then I started thinking about Khamzat fighting.
Yeah, that's right. Because he's smash.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I know it might not be like the most exciting, but it's one that I think just has to happen. And I think it actually might be the best of the 3 fights. Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway Part 3. I think we just need to get it over with. Let's put it to bed. Maybe. It might not be put to bed. We've discussed that before too, but you know, there's already a lot of fights that have been made, so I didn't want to go with any of those necessarily. There's some that you have to get real hypothetical and think of, so try to keep it realistic, but great fights at the same time. I'll go Volkanovski, Holloway 3.
Yeah, it's a great one. I mean, it may bite us in the ass again, not because of like the same reason I said with Khamzat, but because just maybe we don't get the answers we really need, the closure.
Yeah, even though they're the 2 clear best featherweights, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, Clash of the Titans.
Yeah. Number 10. Last question. We just got past Thanksgiving, and it's only right that I had a question regarding Thanksgiving on here.
That's right.
Dominic, I want you to tell the audience, what does your ideal Thanksgiving plate look like?
Actually, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here because I got to explain something. We're starting with turkey, obviously, right? It's the main dish. Oh yeah, you're a ham guy, aren't you?
Yeah, turkey.
Anyways, okay. So, at our household, or not at our household, we go to my grandpa's for Thanksgiving, right? Mm-hmm. And he's known to dabble with the deep fryer, right? We deep fry turkey every year. It's phenomenal. The crispiness, the skin is just so much better than in an oven baked.
I would probably like that better.
You would. You'll come. Maybe next year we'll get you. But what we did this year, my grandpa is a huge proponent of air frying things. I don't know. It's kind of like taking the cooking world by storm lately, where you put it in and you're essentially frying something, but you're not putting it in grease and everything. So it's like a healthier way to fry food, but it tastes nearly as good, if not better. Well, so this year at Thanksgiving, we did 1 deep fried turkey out in the oil, in the fryer, the heat, the fire, all that fun stuff, and 1 in the air fryer. Well, my grandpa has an air frying oven because obviously a turkey isn't going to fit in a normal air fryer that you plug into the wall. It's an air frying oven. So it's an oven that can do an air fry mode. It's weird. But again, he loved air frying so much he bought that oven for that reason. Anyway, so we do 1 and 1 and we compare. And Noah, the air fried turkey was better than the deep fried turkey. The skin and whatnot on the outside was not as crisp, but the meat on the inside was more tender, moist, juicy, and it just had an all-around better taste. So take that for what you will. I just thought I'd share that with our community. But we're going turkey. We're going mashed potatoes and gravy. We're going a roll, preferably the Hawaiian rolls, by the way, because they are the clear-cut best roll in the world. What else did I have on my plate? What I had on my plate the past 2, maybe 3 Thanksgivings, made by yours truly, some buffalo chicken dip. Noah was on the plate as well with some chips. And yeah, that was like my first plate. I'm not big on stuffing, and I'm not big on like the cranberry sauce type stuff. And this year we unfortunately didn't have a green bean casserole, or else that would have been on the plate. So yeah, that was kind of my plate this year. Pretty simple, pretty plain, but it allowed me to go back for like seconds, thirds, and some fourths as well.
Yeah, so I always have this interesting dilemma every year where Thanksgiving Day has always started. Me and my sister will go to my dad's Thanksgiving. This year was my dad and his mom. So there's less food. It's more personal. It's just us. It's just us four. But then after that, we go to my mom's Thanksgiving, where there's aunts,
the big
cousins, grandmas there, the whole family. So there's a lot more food and whatnot. But I do most of my eating at my dad because why not? I'm eating already.
Yeah.
So because of that, my plates are always a little weird because there'll be things that I know my dad will have that my mom won't. So I try to eat more of that there. So I'm just going to give you the ideal plate.
Okay.
I could have the best of both, So ham is my meat of choice. I'm not a turkey guy.
Let us know below, ham or turkey. You have to let us know.
Ham is do I like it more than chicken? It's one of my favorite meats.
I do love a good ham.
Ham shits on turkey.
Yeah, there's something about a good honey bake too. Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
exactly. So I'm going with ham, a lot of it. And then where do I go next? Mashed potatoes, no gravy, no gravy. Gravy is kind of shit, if we're being honest.
Wow. I'm on a roller coaster of emotion.
I don't think it's shit, but I said that just to kind of get you right.
Okay.
Up. But I really don't eat gravy.
All right.
It's to me, I've always said I love the flavor of mashed potatoes by itself.
True. I had some last night.
While gravy tastes good, it's fine. I don't think it improves the flavor to me.
Well, do you know what that tells me? Whoever's making your mashed potatoes, they are damn good, like top tier mashed potatoes.
My mom makes good mashed potatoes. She uses a lot of salt, which
that helps.
My favorite side is not even a common one for a lot of people. I don't know if you've ever had that. You ever had a corn casserole?
Corn casserole? No.
So it's a bit more on the sweeter side. So imagine a little bit of corn in cornbread.
Yeah.
But the cornbread's because cornbread by itself is not really as sweet either.
I do love cornbread though.
I don't know the full recipe, but I know it essentially it's almost like it's a good middle ground between the savory side and the sweet side. So it's not a dessert, but it's almost like on your way to dessert.
Right.
I don't know what goes into it, but a corn casserole is, it is fantastic.
That sounds yummy. I like
corn.
Have
that. I'll probably do some stuffing. I actually didn't have stuffing this year. My dad didn't have it. My mom did, but I was so full when I got to her house, I didn't eat any of it.
Yeah.
So I like a little stuffing. I'm very much a stovetop person. A lot of people think that's blasphemous, but I think stuffing, when you get too high end stuffing, I think it just doesn't even taste like stuffing anymore.
Yeah. I've always been hit or miss on it.
Very good. Deviled eggs.
Oh,
big one. Oh,
that's where you'll miss me.
Oh my God.
I'll skip that over in line for food.
I might have ate 20 deviled eggs this year.
Okay.
And then pumpkin pie.
Classic.
Is the premier pie. My mom hates everything pumpkin. She hates pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Pumpkin pie's always been my go-to. I love pumpkin flavored everything. I'm one of those white girls that loves pumpkin flavored stuff. But also a piece of pecan pie as well.
See, we didn't even have a pie this year, now that I think about it. We had some pumpkin cookies that were good with icing, but no pumpkin pie.
So my dad didn't do pie. My dad and my grandma, they didn't do pie. He did Buckeyes.
Ooh.
And they had graham cracker crumbs put into the batter. So it was like a little
Ooh.
crunch to it, you know?
Ooh, with the peanut butter and
Yeah.
chocolate. Oh,
So it was really good.
that
But
sounds
I
good.
didn't eat too many of them because my mom's house had all the pies.
Yeah.
It was pumpkin pie, pecan pie,
Yeah.
apple pie, um, peanut butter pie.
Oh, that's
Peanut butter pie is fantastic.
That's the go-to.
Also, have you ever had shit? No, I can't think of what it's
Have
called.
I ever had shit? No.
But what's it called?
Banana pudding?
Yes.
We had banana pudding. I love that.
So
They got vanilla wafers in it.
My grandma's big with banana pudding.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a staple.
Yep.
So I love that too. But I wanted to limit myself on the pie. Like, trust
Right.
me, I sample it all. But I'm trying to make myself sound like a little less fat here. So let's go with that. That's probably the ideal plate. 2 pieces of pie. You got a full plate there.
Oh, yeah.
Room for more,
Well, Noah, here's my question. This is what I wanted to ask. I saw this on an Instagram and Twitter poll, voted on both. Is macaroni and cheese a side offered at your Thanksgivings, and or does it belong at the Thanksgiving dinner table, Noah? Macaroni and cheese.
It was not offered this year at either of mine. I can't remember if it ever has been, but if anybody tries to tell me that macaroni and cheese doesn't belong at any time of the year,
It's on site.
They might catch a smack.
Okay, Stockton
Because
slap
macaroni and cheese is the best side that's ever been invented. So, to me, at the end of the day, it's good food. That's all that matters.
Right.
So mac and cheese, just because it might not have been with Squanto and the fucking Pilgrims,
Right.
doesn't mean that we can't eat it on Thanksgiving Day.
I agree.
Same with baked beans. I love me some baked beans.
Yeah.
Don't think I've ever had them on Thanksgiving.
True.
But I sure as shit would eat them if they had them.
That's right.
Deviled eggs aren't really a Thanksgiving thing. It's just something my family does. My dad, or my grandma every year, my dad's mom, she makes a cheese ball.
Peyton made one. My sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she makes a really good cheese ball, had some pretzels and crackers. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But would I necessarily count? Was that a Thanksgiving dish? No, not typically.
Right.
Macaroni and cheese fits in. It could be game day and you're doing buffalo chicken dip. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone made just a big thing of mac and cheese, I'm good.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't offered at our Thanksgiving. I don't know if it has been in the past. It probably has at one time or another, but I'm all for including it at any holiday, Thanksgiving included.
I will say, I bet if I'm thinking accurately, I bet it'll be more so served this Christmas.
Yeah, we always usually do it for Christmas for sure.
Yeah. But that's it, Dominic. I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Reddit Roundtable.
Damn, these are fun.
Short episodes, they are not.
No.
That's because we have so much fun doing them. We could talk about this stuff for hours. We will be back on Friday, back to your regularly scheduled programming with another weekend preview for Full versus Intito.
Yep.
The main event everybody's been waiting for. But really excited to talk about that card. There's a lot of good fights on there.
And Bellator. Hell no.
Bellator as well. Maybe, just maybe, the biggest fight of the whole weekend. Kyoji Horiguchi, Sergio Pettis.
Bellator's had it a few times this year.
It's very close. It's very close. I'm just going to say that when you look into it.
Yeah.
But Dominic, until then, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at DCLE14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact as we continue building this wonderful Joey community at BAJ_MMA podcast.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, it'll take you to a link tree, which will present you with a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes,
but is not limited to,
the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor.
Shout out.
Shout out to Anchor. First one, leaving a voice message. Let us know your thoughts. What was the question that was posed? Your 5 entrants into the Hall of Fame. Who would be your alpha class of the UFC Hall of Fame?
Yes.
What does your Thanksgiving plate look like?
Yes. All the voice messages.
So many voice messages that could be left. I mean, don't be the reason we only get one. You know?
I know. Y'all dropped the bomb or dropped the ball this week. We didn't have any. We're disappointed. We're disappointed in you guys.
Yeah.
It's all right, though. We love you anyway.
Yeah, we love you anyways.
We just want to hear you. That's all.
Yeah. Second thing, becoming a supporter of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would enjoy having your support. But that's it. We're out, and we'll see y'all on Friday.
Damn, I'm hungry.